Welcome everyone to another workshop here at the Test Camp. This is Core Academic Skills Writing Essays, and this is the third workshop in our series. Let's discuss how learning and practicing test skills will empower your test confidence. Now, those of you joining us live online today, we sure wish you could be here with us in person, but you're welcome to contribute your comments anytime. We include them right up here on the discussion boards. And if you're joining us directly through the Test Camp YouTube channel on demand, of course you have an advantage because you can pause and restart or replay that video anytime. Again, this workshop is the third in the Core Academic Skills series. We suggest that you train in this order because of those communication competencies. First start up there with a writing test, then reading, and then essays. The competencies build on each other, and I think many of you have already been through the first two up there, so that's going to be a big advantage for you too. And you also likely know that around here the motto is prepare, practice, perform. And everyone who has successfully completed the training has passed their tests. And that's because test taking is a skill, and the skills require practice. This is the place people come to practice those test skills. So to prepare here at the Test Camp means to understand yourself. Take an honest assessment of how well you know the test content, how well you know your testing skills, and in this case, your writing skills. All right, we start by learning the test blueprint. Many of you have participated in other workshops, so that you know the blueprint is the first indicator of how well you're going to perform. It's the rules, and you need to know the rules so that you can perform at your best. This can also be a good first step to creating what we call My Draft. Now that's an area where it provides an opportunity to submit an essay for review, and we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. All right, let's learn about that blueprint. Here's an overview of the test, Core Academic Skills Series. Okay, so we're up there in the writing section. All right, there's going to be two essays, essay 1 and essay 2, one argumentative, and one is called source-based, and that is an informative essay, and I'm going to tell you about that one in just a little bit. We'll get into some detail here today, and of course there'll be plenty of practice for you there over in the training center. As you can see here, they're 30 minutes each, and that doesn't mean an hour for writing writing both essays. It means you have 30 minutes to write the first one, 30 minutes to write the second one. And knowing this is going to help put you on a pace for success because you decide how much time you want to invest into maybe writing an outline, composing your draft, and then reviewing your essay before submitting it. All right, here's a question back here. I'm going to repeat it for those who are watching the recording. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Yes, you will have an opportunity to practice that routine here at the training center, and then you can submit one essay for draft, and we will read it for you. There's graders that will read it for you, and they will give it back to you. It's actually the argumentative essay that you can do that. A lot of people do it. Well, you're welcome. Good. All right. Well, we'll discuss that opportunity here in just a little bit. To better understand the competencies used to grade your draft, let's have a discussion about this, the scoring. All right, what score is required to pass the core writing essays? All right, does anybody know the percent to pass? You are correct. There is no percent to pass. Unlike the other three core tests, your essays are not graded by percentage. Instead, graders receive your essay anonymously, and then they report back your score based on how well you demonstrate the competencies. You're being graded on your writing knowledge and your writing skill. All right, do you remember how many competencies we talked about in the first two workshops, the writing and the reading workshops? That is correct. Good for you. Yes, 6 competencies. So you're getting graded on each one of these. The first competency is establishing the main idea, or what we call ideas, and that's logical, right? But you don't get to write an essay on just any idea. Instead, they're going to be provided for you, right, in the form of what's called prompts. And we'll look at some examples in just a moment. But first, let's go ahead and have a discussion about the competencies among yourself. What are the other 5? So at your tables, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, see if you can list, or if you remember, all 6 competencies, and see if you can put them in order. All right, we'll come back as a group and compare your lists. For those those of you joining us today live online, share your thoughts and we're going to include them right up here in the discussion. And if you're joining us on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording and list out those competencies. If you participate in the first two workshops, you likely know all 6. By the way, the second one is purpose. All right, when you restart the video, we'll be here and you can compare your list with ours. The second competency right over here, right, when you all have it. Yes, purpose, exactly. Once you have the main idea to write about, you have to decide how you're going to write it, with what purpose. And again, we'll take a closer look at purpose in just a few minutes. The next competency begins the planning stages, or the organization. Do you remember what that was called? Yes, the structure. How many groups listed structure somewhere? Everybody got that one. Okay. So you develop your idea, decide on your purpose, then organize or create structure for your essays. What's the fourth competency? Correct again, vocabulary. So according to the test information guides here, the graders will be looking for use of what's called appropriate words. Words that support the ideas, purpose, and structure of the essays. So how might appropriate words match the ideas of an essay? Well, if you're given an essay prompt, let's say, how to teach reading, what would be some of the words that the grader might expect to find in the essay? How to teach reading. Phonics, okay, good. Fluency, there you go. Phonemes, phonomic awareness, okay. Yes, all these are words associated with the ideas of teaching reading. All right, so that's how the vocabulary works its way in. And I was going to forge through the competencies here. I think this is important. So what we're going to do is stop again at your tables. Let's have a discussion at your tables about how vocabulary interacts with both purpose and structure. Okay, so how do choosing the appropriate words convey purpose in an essay? And what words create structure? Hopefully we have an English person or a writing person at each table. All right, we'll come back and compare your thoughts as a group in just a few minutes. If you're joining us today live online, thank you again for sharing your thoughts, and we're going to include them right up here in the discussion. They might need a little help on this one. And if you're joining us on demand by the Test Camp YouTube channel, this might be a good time to pause the recording and think about what is meant by appropriate vocabulary. How do the words that you choose have anything to do with the purpose that you're trying to convey, or how you're trying to organize your structure? All right, we'll be here when you restart the video. The vocabulary words, up here, the vocabulary words chosen are expected to convey the purpose of the essay, which is going to be either argumentative or informative. Now you're remembering that, right? More on that in just a few minutes. Words are also used to create organization, which is called structure, right? And that's transition words are a good example. Therefore, we'll look at these words later in the essay. See how that works? Therefore, that's the transition word. Okay. So let's move on to the fifth competency. That's called usage. Vocabulary is choosing the appropriate words. This competency relates to using the words correctly. Using the words correctly. Yes, see what I did there? Yes, correctly. Why? Because that's an adverb. Right, it's knowing what types of words to use. What describes a noun? An adjective. What describes a verb? An adverb, and so on. Okay, and this is what the graders are looking for here. All right, mostly the appropriate use of words. Do you remember the sixth competency? Mechanics. This is the mechanics of writing that were discussed in the other two communication workshops. What were the errors we talked about? Spelling, punctuation, capitalization. There we go, we got all three. So then, here again is the list the graders used to assess your essays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There they are. And again, we've created at the test camp this rubric to help you out. When you send your draft to us, you're going to get a score back based on the rubric. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I said that before or not. It's 6 of them. There's 10 points each, so 60 points, about a 40. You would need it somewhere in the range of 40 or more to be considered a pass. And that's pretty much the same for your test too. But this is how graders, including ours, give feedback in each one of the areas. Okay, let's enlarge the rubric and discuss each competency, starting with ideas. You earn credit towards a passing essay by developing and maintaining key ideas. However, again, the key ideas will be provided for you through prompts. These are short scenarios, one argumentative and one source-based. We'll discuss these scenarios today at the workshop. All right, you might think of these as topics that you have to choose from. Now, if you're out there, if you heard of people paying for a webinar or they find outdated study guides, be aware because prompts are often changed. They're not always on general topics like who's the most influential person in your life and why, or discuss an American leader. Sometimes, and hopefully really, you might get a prompt related to education. And that's great because that's a huge advantage. Why would you say that? Yeah, you could prepare for that. You're studying education topics so they're fresh in your mind, right? It also helps to limit the possible topics. So check your test information guides and see if they give you any clues about what the topics might be about. That way you can predict and plan. All right, here's how you can do that. And think about it. If you knew the topics were going to be about education, they've got to be one of these areas. These are the competencies for learning and teaching. All right, let's try something here. What's the main idea of this prompt? I'll give you a couple minutes. Don't say it out loud if you would. Just go ahead and write it down. What is the main idea? All right, you think you have it? We'll come back to this one. Here's a second prompt. What do you think is the main idea of this prompt? Now, not the purpose, the idea. Yes, just write it down. Back to the first example, prompt 1. What did you say was the main idea here? Yeah, over here. Teaching strategies. Okay, let's look at prompt 2 again. Which competency is being talked about here? This would be planning for teaching. Okay, teachers have to continually change their lesson plans. Anybody else have something different for this one? You thought it was professionalism, so why would you say that? You have to keep up with what's new in the profession. Okay. Well, in either case, you are focused in. That's good. You're focused in on what the key idea is, and that's what you'd want to stay focused on. The next thing to do would be on our list over there to the left in the table would be purpose. Right. Okay, again, there's good news here, a way to prepare in advance. You can expect to be asked to either write one essay, and it's going to be either argumentative, that's the first essay, essay 1. Essay 2 is going to be informative. Now, we discussed these purposes over in the reading workshop, but let's do this again real quick. Remember, argumentative essays convey either opinion or they're designed for persuasion. Do you remember that? A call for action. You'll be asked to write your opinion on a given topic in essay 1. You do not need to write a persuasive essay. There are also two main types of informative essays. The first is simply, as the title implies, to provide information. So in teaching strategies courses, you might think of this as direct teaching or telling, just providing information. The second type of informative essay is explanation. In teaching terms, this would be providing directions or a set of instructions. Essay 2 will ask you to provide information, not an explanation. So expect to be asked to provide information that you take from 2 short passages. We said we'd talk about this. They give you 2 short passages. Okay, they're calling those sources. And then you read both of those through, and then you create an essay from both of those. Yes, go ahead, and I'll repeat for the people listening or watching in on the video. Right, it's pretty much that simple, but you're right, it does take time. You're given these 2 short passages, maybe 2 to 3 paragraphs, so think about it, that's probably 5 minutes to read through those, maybe a little bit less. But you want to identify the main issues in each passage, and then compare maybe the two different perspectives. And then from that, then you go ahead and you create your essay. And again, good news here, the test information guide is very thorough. It's called a study companion. It's free. It's provided by the state, always up to date. So you'll want to use that, and they'll have some good examples in there for you. Good question. Thanks. So expect to write about opinion on Essay 1 and provide information on Essay 2. And in both essays, the graders are looking for organization, which we called over there on the left structure. When you consider structure, think about the organization of sentences, paragraphs, and organization of the entire essay. The first question we usually get around here is, well, how long does my essay have to be, right? What's required for a passing score? So what have you heard? Are people talking about this? Is there a required number of words or paragraphs? Well, those who have gone before you and passed on their first attempt, they suggest 4 well-written paragraphs, or maybe 3 if you can do it in 3. These are designed to work together, and here's the general outline. That first paragraph's the introduction of your ideas or idea there. You develop an idea there, idea 1. Then you develop a second idea. Maybe compare and contrast. Depends on what the question's asking. And in the conclusion, be sure to summarize and include the purpose of the essay. So there you go, 4 paragraphs all working together to make an essay that it can be described as logical and coherent. And you can see it up there in the rubric. That's what the graders are looking for. Logical, and coherent. Now, believe it or not, some people don't think 4 paragraphs is enough. They think more is better, so they want to write 5 paragraphs. So I guess this is how they would do it. But we do not recommend this. We think that it's quality over quantity. 4 paragraphs that work together, sometimes 3, especially considered that you're allotted only 30 minutes for each essay. Yes, over here. Right, and then that second essay, you have to read those 2 passages, so now you're down to 25 minutes. So you don't need to panic about that, but we'll talk about that here in just a minute, time management. So again, the next competency then is vocabulary. We're running down through here. From the writing workshop, you'd like to remember that vocabulary is described in the test information guide as the meaning of words, selection of appropriate words, and conveying meaning through diction and tone, considering your audience. So again, back to the scoring rubric. Let's look at these last 2 down here, 5 and 6. That's usage and mechanics. Both of these competencies also were discussed in detail in the other workshops. The graders are essentially looking for errors that might distract the reader, aren't they? So what are usage errors? How would you use a word incorrect? You would use it incorrectly, right? So adjectives, adverbs, pronouns. What are mechanics errors? We said it just a moment ago. Spelling, capitalization, one other one, punctuation. Okay. So errors, as you can see up there in the rubric, are expected to be few and insignificant so that there's no interference with the ability to read the essay or understand the ideas and purpose. So here again is the rubric used to provide feedback. Like we said, a score of about 40 out of 60 is considered adequate to pass. The idea is to be strong across the board in each area. So is there any questions about the test before we discuss other ways to prepare? Yes, back there. This is the core writing test. So the score you earn on the essays is added to your score on the 40 question multiple choice test. Yeah, we seemed to forget about that, didn't we? Remember the writing test is actually 2 parts, 40 questions multiple choice, and then these 2 essays. So think of the core writing essay as 3 separate tests, 40 minutes for the multiple choice, 30 minutes essay 1, 30 minutes essay 2. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that could get lost. All right, so let's discuss for just a couple of minutes what to expect at your test center on test day. Now, those of you who've gone before, they recommend going down to the test center. Now, maybe you can just walk to one wherever you are. Have you been to the test center yet? How many have been to the test center? You know where you're going to take the test. Have you gone inside? Have you met a test center assistant? Yeah, well, so you know the location of your test center. All right, well, why does that make a lot of sense? Because you don't want to be in a strange place on test day, right? You want to be familiar with the setting. All right, for example, you can expect to be stationed at a keyboard. It's going to have a simple word processor for your test, including the essays. Yeah, question over here. Go right ahead. Yes, no spell check, just like a notepad, basically, that you type on. And our understanding is that all essays must be typed, right? And that's a good question for your test center administrator. I think it has to be quite an issue for you not have to go in there and type it. Each center is unique, so they all have similar procedures, but you need to go in there and ask them first. Why would we discuss distractions in a workshop like this? What's that meant? Yeah, what have you heard? Well, those that have gone before you report that people might walk in and out of the test area, believe it or not, while you're sitting there taking the test. Loud typing. In one case, the restroom was actually inside the test room area. All right, so when you practice, maybe you include some distractions, do it around kids or something. I don't know. No, just kidding. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Beware, don't let that get all flustered, because when you visit the test center, you'll kind of see the environment. What do you know about the scrap paper policy? If allowed, scrap paper might be a valuable tool, because you're allowed at 30 minutes to complete the first essay and 30 for the second one. So how might you use scrap paper to help you with your time? Well, are you a planner? Someone who prefers to invest time in an outline? Or are you more of just a diver? Someone who prefers to just get in there and start writing? All right, so what is your preference? Last time to talk about this thing at the tables here. Do you have a preference? Are you more of somebody who just likes to get in there and make an outline, make sure that you got everything, and then go? Or are you someone who just likes to dive right in and start writing? All right, we'll come back as a group and compare your thoughts. Hey, if you're joining us today live online, share your thoughts one last time. We're going to include them right up here in the discussion. And if you're joining us on demand, this might be a good time to pause the recording to think about your strategy for making the most of the time allotted for each one of these essays. Remembering that essay 2, you also have to budget time to read the 2 passages. And we'll be here when you restart the video. Okay, welcome back. If you participated in the other workshops, you'd likely remember we've agreed there's really no best approach to this. Everybody does it their own way. But don't forget about that essay too. There's going to be some time management involved there. So we do agree that practice, that's the key. That either way that you choose, getting some practice down makes a lot of sense. So let's look at some suggestions from those who have passed the test. They've gone through the training here, and they passed on their first attempt, of course. So their first suggestion is to keep consistent point of view. Okay, you know what they're referring to here? Yeah, the voice. The next suggestion they have is consistent tense, it says up here. Now, what does that mean? If you start in the past, stay in the past. There you go. That's a good way to put it. Okay, here's another suggestion they have. Subject-verb agreement. Okay, I got it. Pretty much basic English language skills. Their next recommendation is, if you can and you're comfortable, use a variety of sentences. Okay, and their fifth suggestion is about the proper use of transition words. And you know what we're meaning here. We've talked about this a little before. Words that connect. Words that connected phrases and sentences. So transition words can be thought of in 3 categories: addition, time, and place or location. Here's some examples of transition words related to addition. So the idea is not to use a lot of these words, but if you do use them, be sure to use them correctly. Here's a list of transition words related to time. Not on this list is consequently. I do see subsequently. Do you know the difference between consequently and subsequently? If you don't, I don't think I would use it. I think the graders probably know. All right, finally, a list of transition words related to place or location. Again, it's okay to use transition words, just be sure that they're used properly. And there's one more suggestion that they have I put up here for you. Just added this one in. What do you think they're going to say here? Yeah, writing by text, like we do a lot of times on our phone, is very different than writing text. Using complete sentences. What else do you do when you write text? Proper grammar, spelling, capitalization, right. So this is just a kind of a warning from those who have passed the essays. Many of you are likely writing by text way more than you're writing text. So you might need a little bit of practice passing this essay. All right, finally, completing the essay is also a skill. What do you know what we mean by this is that to complete an essay, you have to go back and review first before you push that button. Before you submit your essay, be sure to use all the extra time you have to check that you represented your writing skills according to the scoring rubric. And take the opportunity to read your essay aloud. Is this a practice you do at home? You certainly can do this when you practice, and you can do it quietly to yourself on test day too, as long as you're not disturbing the other people. All right, you can do this. It's time to perform with confidence. For those of you joining us today, thanks again. Answer the questions on your screen down there, and you can start training to write the essays like we're going to do. Feel free to submit your draft for review later after you feel comfortable doing it. There's no better time than now to empower your